Okay, so next up is Monica Pearson. Monica is the principal at Balance Ecological, and it's an environmental consulting firm that works with a wide range of partners to preserve and restore wetland habitats in the Fraser Valley. She's also a graduate student at UBC and serves on the board of the Fraser Valley Watersheds Coalition to improve watershed health through stewardship outreach and active restoration. Please welcome Monica Pearson.
Okay. So our planet is in a global biodiversity crisis. We are losing species at a rate that is so alarming that scientists are dubbing this the sixth great extinction. You can see over here that our species that depend on aquatic habitat are particularly at risk. And look at the frogs, that's 41% of our amphibians are endangered. Now as we lose, thank you. All right. So each species that we lose is also a lost relationship. As a node disappears, the connections with it disappear, and the remaining connections are stronger and tighter and take on more stress, followed by potentially the collapse of the entire system. Most species at risk are simply out of a home. This endangered Oregon spotted frog is a local species at risk that depends on shallow, warm, wetland habitats in order to go through its life cycle. However, most of those habitats have been drained for agriculture in the Fraser Valley and along the west coast, which is where it exists. However, it's not the only species that relies on these systems. 67 federally listed animal species are listed as threatened or endangered in the Fraser Valley alone, all depending on this wetland habitat that the Oregon spotted frogs need as well. So it's a target species. But when a species gets down to the point where we're trying to save it from extinction, it takes an enormous amount of effort. There are teams dedicated to research and monitoring, breeding the species in captivity, outreach, talking to school kids and landowners, and habitat restoration, which is where my passions come in. This doesn't happen in a vacuum. We have many, many partners that help us run these programs, including all levels of government and NGOs, institutions, and businesses such as Frogbox, which is our 1% for the Planet partner through BC Conservation Foundation. So I'm interested in habitat restoration. The poster child for habitat loss in the Fraser Valley is Sumas Lake, pictured above about 100 years ago, pictured below in 2005. It is now Sumas Prairie, and it produces an enormous amount of food, very fertile agricultural land that feeds all of us in this room, feeds the West Coast, which is very important, and we're not going to reflood Sumas Lake. But what we can do is work with local landowners to find those little pockets, the swales, the wet corners of the fields, and potentially the larger fields that are just too wet to farm, to restore the habitats for the species that need them. So we also include humans in this. We do all of this with kids and for kids. We include in each of our projects features that drive curiosity, like those logs in the back for the kids to walk out on, because ultimately we're creating habitats for healthy humans as well as for healthy amphibians, fish, and birds, and everything that goes along with it. So these are 4 organizations that work in our backyard on the doorstep of the Fraser Valley, doing excellent work in habitat restoration and also in education and outreach about species at risk and about general wetland, watershed, water health in the Fraser Valley. If you're considering donations to 1% of the Planet, consider those organizations as somebody in your backyard.